Today we'll be talking about sexual assault and joined by Left at the Valley.
Hi, this is the crew from Left at the Valley. My name is Kevin.
I'm Nancy.
This is Kirsten.
And Christina.
And you have the right to reason.
If you believe in the message for the right to reason and feel that it is a contribution to today's marketplace of ideas, you could help support it by sharing it with your friends, giving it a rating on iTunes, subscribing to it on YouTube, following it on Twitter at Right to Reason 1, following the Right to Reason page on Facebook, and contributing at patreon.com/right. Even $1 provides multiple rewards. That's patreon.com/right. Thank you for supporting your right to reason.
It's May 6, 2018. This is episode 53. I am your host, Robert Stanley, and this is the Right to Reason.
It's the Right to Reason podcast.
These guys are total goofballs. I know you're going to love them.
Give it a shot. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hi, this is Kevin.
Penis.
This is Kirsten.
And Christina.
And this from the Left of the Valley, and you have the right to reason.
You guys didn't hear me say penis when you did it?
We
heard
just
you say
ignored
penis.
you.
Future Robert, edit this. It's so useful, though. Like, later I'm like, oh, thank you. I am Future Robert.
Hi, Future Robert.
We should play elevator music here.
We can do all sorts of sound effects. Anybody do a train?
I could do the sound effects, but I'm not sure you're going to pick them up.
This is like the shittiest
There we go.
movie of the Police Academy series happening right now. And we are joined with the podcast Left at the Valley, an alt-right podcast out of Afghanistan.
Okay.
Wait, is that? Let me do a better one. That's the worst intro I've ever given. I'm sorry. Let me start
Robert,
over.
Thank you so much for bringing us on your show, the Right to Reason for Christ. We really appreciate it.
Fair enough. That was a bad intro. I'm going to do a corny intro now.
Would approve.
This is the corniest intro you can get. All right. Straight from the streets. Put it up, put it up, put it up. Left at the Valley. Give it up. Show some love. Was that not corny? That was super corny. I did the sound effects.
Oh, nice.
You're listening to KAPT Radio with Rob Lee of the Right to Reason.
Man,
Get your tickets at the Monster Rally.
Thank you so much, Robert, for having us on your show.
Man, it is great to have you guys. When I was on your show, that was the most fun I have had as a guest on any other podcast I've ever been on. Your show is hilarious, and I love what you guys are doing. Having you guys over here it's just fucking awesome. Thank you. Can everybody introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about yourselves so the listener knows who we're talking to?
Absolutely. My name is Kevin. I'm the main host, and I must say, having you on our show was part of our community service. we pretty much reached our quota.
Yearly outreach.
Exactly.
I'm Nancy, and true confession time as the oldest person in the room. The funny part is that either they think that it's a wonderful thing that I'm still alive and breathing, or they put a lot of pressure on me because they think I know everything in history from the beginning. So my nickname is the Wandering Jew.
She's the Wandering Jew of legend.
The Wandering Jew.
And I'm Kirsten. I am, I guess, the newest member of the podcast. I kind of just tagged along with Christina, and
somebody had to keep an eye on her.
And somehow Kevin kept forcing me to make love to the mic, so now I have it in front of me all the time.
So you're the newbie. You're the one everybody picks on.
Oh, and I'm Christina. I'm the resident nerd and Harry Potter expert. And Kirsten is too, but I'm more crazy about it.
Yeah. I guess we got to give a bit of a shout out to our missing member, because one of our members is actually traveling back east right now. Scott is not with us. He's our resident military man.
Oh, he's
and
awesome.
Prankster extraordinaire as well.
Scott wasn't there when I was on your show either. Does he hate me?
Oh, no. He's right now. He's actually traveling back east because we have this story about how this Canadian ice cream company called Sweet Jesus is opening some branches in the U.S. And apparently Christians are up in a roar about that. And he's heading back east right now as we speak to take that ice cream and bring some here.
That's so cool. So speaking of sexual assault,
speaking of sexual assault, he says, "Hey, you read our profile, didn't you?"
That's a good segue. All right, so here's what's going on in the world right now. If anybody hasn't been on their Facebook or their Twitter machine, then I'm going to read you this real quick. All right, here it is. BuzzFeed News says, this firebrand atheist was just fired after allegations of financial conflicts and sexual assault. David Silverman, president or former president of American Atheists. Guys, this follows up a long list of names of prominent leaders within our community, if atheists can say we have leaders, but definitely big names within the atheist community. Michael Shermer has faced faced sexual assault charges. Who else? Lawrence Krauss. Did you guys know that even Neil deGrasse Tyson? Thanks. I was going to say who's the black one, but that sounded racist. That sounded bad. I didn't want to say that.
Astrophysicist.
Yeah. The comments of Robert Stanley are not necessarily those of left advance subsidiary and crew, by the way.
Well, it's sad and it's disappointing, but people who allegedly abuse power and use their position for any kind of sexual dominance, it has nothing to do with race, religion, or what part of the country they come from. It has to do with the way that particular individual views himself and the world. And it's sad. It's good that it's coming out, but it's sad that we're seeing so much of it.
I'm kind of curious. There's a few things that, first of all, I love David Silverman. I love his brand of firebrand atheism.
Yeah, and he was on our show.
He was on our show, and I was hoping to bring him back this year. And I think his message is right on point on what we need to do as atheists. But there's a couple of questions that kind of raises my eyebrow here for a second. Is it me or is it BuzzFeed just hitting after atheists here?
As soon as BuzzFeed came out against Krauss's response was they're just attacking atheism. And exactly. I remember Thomas Smith's episode where he was saying, oh, come on, that's ridiculous. It does sound like a pretty weak excuse.
At first, absolutely.
Yeah, but now I'm kind of like, wow, I don't know, is it the chicken or the egg? So.
Well, it might also be because we're in that community, those are the ones we notice more.
Yeah, but I mean, there are sexual scandals within every denomination of Christianity and churches every week. And they barely make, they'll be on Right Wing Watch or they might be on the Raw Story, but they barely make a peep. And all of a sudden, there's this big kerfuffle of BuzzFeed on David Silverman or Lawrence Krauss. They're big names for us in our community, in our group. But for the average person out there, who the hell is Lawrence Krauss? Who the hell is David Silverman? They're not big names. And I'm kind of surprised that BuzzFeed seems to be going after what would be small potatoes in the world of the press.
I don't know whether I totally agree with you 100% on that or not. It seems as though the Christian scandals do come out quite regularly because the evangelists seem to be so hypocritical. They've been a force for, no masturbation, no sex, no this, no boys, no girls, no LBG, and all of a sudden they're caught. So I think we see that.
But I don't recall BuzzFeed articles about that.
But are those attacks without merit?
No, that's not what I'm saying. For something like Krauss, for example, I don't want to judge Krauss because we had a chat with Lawrence Krauss. He was extremely gracious, and I got him drunk. That's another story. Maybe I'll tell you that one later, Robert.
Yes, please tell us that. But finish.
Oh, yeah. But I have a tendency to say, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? If you replace the name Lawrence Krauss with a name like Bill Cosby, for example, and the amount of accusation. Right away, we said Bill Cosby, boom, he's guilty. Lawrence Krauss has seemed to be a lot of people coming out accusing him of doing something like that. There probably is fire, although I'll reserve judgment for when the investigations are done.
And in defense, these accusations aren't the same thing. And I don't want to defend any sexual assaulter.
Of course.
But I do want to clarify that these are different offenses. You can't compare Roy Moore, which we actually have a audio recording of David Silverman speaking specifically about sexual assault, and Roy Moore, which we'll get to momentarily. But you can't compare these accusations to Roy Moore and, like you said, Bill Cosby, for instance, who is probably the most prominent rapist in American history. Yeah. So, I mean, it's insane what that guy actually got away with for years. But what we hate about the Bill Cosby thing, what really burns us up, isn't that he was a rapist, I think, as much as he was a rapist that played off like he's a good guy. And that really, the horrible atrocities that he did are so vile, but it makes it that much worse whenever he's writing. I actually have his book in my library. I'm looking at it right now. And it's called fatherhood.
Yeah, I totally understand. Bill Cosby had an image that was so positive, especially for the African American community, and they needed those positive images because they were often depicted as very negative people, and it was the worst thing to see is a hero fall, right? At the same time, it's what really writes the lines.
Yeah, I guess his comedy was family friendly.
Absolutely,
he had this good guy persona.
I mean, he was
the last guy in the room that you pick out.
He was your dad.
Bill
Cosby was your dad, exactly.
Exactly.
He was your dad.
Yeah, my mom got around. So that's horrible. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry. All right, she doesn't listen to this show. She's a Christian.
I'm sorry. We know you already. You're not sorry.
So, but in the same vein of hypocrisy, I think to comment to you, Kevin, where you're saying what's with BuzzFeed coming out, maybe there was something to what Krauss said. It sounds like a weak excuse to me, but if there is something to like what's their motivation, maybe it's because the atheist movement has been so supportive of Me Too, and now we've got these guys getting accused, and I'll just read Silverman's response to it. Somebody give me elevator music. That's Jeopardy. That's not elevator.
What was that?
It's my elevator music. Or I'll take a O for $200, please.
In a brief statement to BuzzFeed News, Silverman's lawyer, Sebastian Lano, said that Mr. Silverman denies any wrongdoing and has never had a non-consensual sexual encounter. So we've talked a lot about the names of the accused. We haven't talked about the victims, and I was wanting to read this story real quick from...
There were a couple of women, weren't there? And their stories really are pretty awful.
I haven't actually read any. I've just heard about this.
This is going to bug you a little bit. It gets actually surprisingly graphic.
Yeah.
I want to read one of the complaints. I think there were two. So far. In one of those complaints, a woman described a hotel room party held at the end of the 2015 American Atheist Convention in Memphis. That's very interesting, by the way, that's from 2015, because the recording that I played from Silverman, he mentions his personal changes that he's gone through in the last few years. And whenever I saw this article, I immediately remembered that conversation and thought, whoa. But anyway, I'll continue. She used her name in the confidential complaint, but because of concerns about hostility experienced by other women who have made allegations of sexual misconduct against prominent atheists, she asked BuzzFeed News to use her first initial, R. She and Silverman had known each other for years, and he flirted with her throughout the evening. She wrote in the complaint, after the other guests left, R wrote that Silverman asked her to join him in smoking marijuana on the roof. But before they left the room, he suddenly forced himself on her. This is in her quotes. He physically pressed me to the wall and began to kiss me forcefully, grabbed my breasts, put his hands into my leggings, where there was actual penetration of my vagina, she wrote. R believes Silverman knew she was interested in BDSM and wrote that he began using insulting language, calling her a, quote, dirty little whore. He then pushed her to her knees, quote, where his penis briefly made contact with my mouth, end quote, she wrote. R got her feet and said, no, that's in quotations, she wrote. Silverman then lightly slapped her face and said, you don't get to say no to me. At that point, R said the widely used BDSM safe word, quote, unquote, red, which stopped him, and then she left. The next day, R took photographs of bruises where she said Silverman had grasped her, and these pictures were included in her complaint to American Atheists. So that's some pretty heavy stuff, guys. I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
Not that it would make a whole lot of difference, but I don't think there was anything in that article. Robert, maybe was there anything having to do with these were as a result of, when he was drunk, or the drinking changed his behavior? Just
not that it would be an excuse.
No.
Right,
No.
but I didn't see anything in the article referencing that. And in fact, even the smoking marijuana, that apparently happened before they smoked.
Yeah.
Or they were going to smoke, and this preempted that.
No, it's reprehensible behavior, regardless.
Yeah, people have asked me on the show lately, some of our listeners, why we haven't actually talked a whole lot about Krauss and Shermer, and we even had Michael Shermer on at the beginning of the year, and now David Silverman, and we really haven't aborted the subject. And the reason for that I gave is it's quite simple. Although people like to label them as atheist leaders. There is no such thing as atheist leadership. We admire these men for their contribution to science and the contribution they've done. If their public behavior is reprehensible and they did something wrong, then they should totally face the consequence. But nonetheless, you can't take away. You take Krauss, for example. You can't take away that the man is a brilliant astrophysicist. He's brilliant in what he does. So even if he did something that I would find immoral or that has those kind of consequences, okay, so I wouldn't invite him to a party, but I can't deny the work that he's done nonetheless, right? And the same thing for Silverman or Michael Shermer.
Well, you bring up an interesting question. If you know these men who are leaders in atheism or humanism or whatever,
but that was exactly my point.
And you respect the work that they did and the leadership that they've shown to bring atheism more out in the public eye and so forth, would you invite one of them, any of them, to a party knowing what you know now?
Probably not.
Yeah, absolutely not. No.
Would I invite them for a lecture?
See, even that I wouldn't. For me, I would look for someone who was just as brilliant in the field and raise them up instead as like an intellectual. Because the thing is, these people, yes, they're intelligent and really well spoken, but they're not they're not the only ones.
No, but I don't think we should project an image of perfection onto these people. Like, for example, when you're take Ted Haggard. Remember Ted Haggard when he got caught with a male prostitute? The reason because it was so devastating for him is because he was projecting himself as being such a perfect moral person. Krauss or Shermer or David Silverman don't do that. They don't present themselves as leaders of atheism or morally superior to anybody else. They're just people too. And there are people that admit their flaws. Those are big flaws. Might not. But it should not be used to undermine the contributions to the fields of science, the respective fields in science, that they actually have done. We shouldn't throw away their contribution to science because they had a moral flaw.
So you wouldn't invite them to your party, but would you invite them to hold a lecture where you were selling tickets and he was getting part of it too?
I don't know.
I think
because
for
of his
me,
profession.
It would have to do with their responses.
Mm-hmm.
If they are totally denying everything, even though there's like good evidence and lots of accusations, and they're still like, yeah, no, that didn't happen. Or if they're like Louis C.K. who's like, yeah, no, I've done this. This is totally true.
Absolutely.
Then, okay, that person I give a little more weight, and I'll actually maybe like go back to them and, okay, let's talk about your behavior, what you've learned, maybe get a lot of counseling, a lot of help, figure like healthy ways to do what you want. Because if you're famous, people will want to have sex with you. Just work on time and place.
Exactly.
But for me, if people are not facing their actions and realizing what they've done wrong, and they continue, no matter what, to put the blame on other people or just say, oh, well, I didn't actually do anything wrong, then like, for me, then I don't want anything to do with them in any aspect of their life.
No. But I want to stress out here. I'm not trying to defend Krauss or Shermer and all that. But I'm trying. Let's put an example. Let's say for example a hockey player. You got a hockey player, and all of a sudden he's got a good score. He's got a record. But you find out that this guy was actually doing cocaine and he beat up a couple of prostitutes. Should we take away his record on the list?
He beat up a couple prostitutes. Beat up 3 or 4. It's whatever.
Maybe football players more accurate in that sense.
A baker's dozen.
Beating up someone's mother, of course. What the heck? Prostitutes.
The fact is, he's a good hockey player nonetheless. But he's a douche. Absolutely.
Kevin, you son of a bitch. I'm sorry. I know you're not saying. I know what you mean.
Be like, we're gonna like take away all your previous scores and all your previous records, but you're no longer on the team.
Well, even then, that probably wouldn't happen either way.
Sports.
Right? Yeah, when it comes to sport. Stupid. But I'm just saying, we got to be careful that because Krauss and Silverman and Shermer got caught doing something that we find reprehensible, we shouldn't throw away all of their contributions they've brought nonetheless.
Yes, I agree that the things that they have contributed until this point
Yes.
should still be valued for their intellectual value.
Exactly. Because just take a person in history, Albert Einstein. If Albert Einstein was here today, he would be called a two-timing son of a bitch that's cheating on his wife with another woman, and he's such a misogynist.
Or even the American founding fathers that owned slaves would be an example of that. Sure.
Exactly. They did something that's not morally up to the standard we'd like to see them, but nonetheless, we got to be careful not to just erase the person completely because they had a moral failing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Well, here's what
shouldn't be here either.
No, I agree. You shouldn't erase what they've done, but going forward, that's kind of a
that is where I would be like, okay, let's find someone else in their field that is as well spoken as them, that knows everything they know.
Yeah.
And let's focus on them and let them come to the conferences and let's let them.
But when you hear some of the people that accuse Krauss, for example, these people are saying, "Oh, burn his books," and you should be allowed to write a scientific paper anymore, and we shouldn't get kicked out of the university, and blah blah blah. I'm like, well, hold on a sec. You still have a valuable scientist there. Okay, he's acting like a douche, but he's still a valuable scientist. You got to be careful what you say here. You don't just completely negate a person because they did something bad.
So what do you think, Robert?
On that comment, negating what he says, part of with Silverman, a lot of what he said was concerning me too, and in particular, episode 33 called "Rockin' It with David Silverman." I had spoken to him. I'll include the YouTube link in the show notes for any of the listeners, but I'm just going to play this. It's about 3 minutes, and I'd like you guys to hear from the horse's mouth what he thinks about someone that is accused of sexual allegations, whether or not we should believe the victim. And here's David here.
When we're talking about assholes, we need to be wary of pigeonholing people. We need to be wary of being unforgiving. We need to allow people to get better, to heal, to repent. We need to allow that because we need numbers. We need people. We need donors. We need members. We need large numbers. And we need large numbers of good people. So I am hopeful that the number of assholes in this movement is smaller than we all think it is. But we cannot deny their existence anymore.
Yeah.
And we cannot deny that we don't want them at the American Atheist National Convention. And so what we have to do is make sure that we are nuanced in our criticism. And I believe that the nuance in our criticism of the assholes is to zoom right in on the assholes, not on the people who did an action, and not on the people who once upon a time were assholes, but now don't want to be assholes anymore. We have to allow them in. We have to give them leeway. We have to give them the opportunity to learn and grow. I have grown over the past many years, and over the past 3 years personally, I've gone through a lot of growth. And people need to allow that. Atheists need to allow that. On the other hand, we do not need to tolerate assholes. And if you're currently an asshole, dude, just stay out of my mind, stay out of my friendship circle, stay out of my membership base. American Atheist does not want your money. American Atheist does not want your membership. If you think it's funny to make fun of a woman, any woman who has been sexually assaulted ever, you need to check your morals and get back to us when you feel better, because that's not where we are.
On the subject of sexual assault, I noticed here recently, Roy S. Moore, this is from New York Times, Roy S. Moore on Monday was accused of sexually assaulting someone that was 16 years old.
Yeah.
And this is when he was in his, I want to say it was his mid-30s. Beverly Young Nelson told news reporters that, as a quote, "I tried fighting him off while yelling at him to stop, but instead of stopping, he began squeezing my neck, attempting to force my hand into his crotch." And it goes on and on. It gets pretty graphic, but really sad. And, of course, we know that's wrong. And, yeah, it is possible that accusation isn't true. Yeah, we don't want to take that typical route of just assuming that things are false as soon as we hear them, because that's what got us into this.
Holy shit! No, I assume that things are true. I believe the victim.
Absolutely.
No. We don't do the whole assume the things are false. That's what the evangelicals do.
Well, that's actually what I wanted to talk about, is the evangelical response to this. Not just the evangelicals, the Republicans are coming out of the woodwork here defending Roy Moore. And I'm thinking, boy, you guys You guys already stooped to defending neo-Nazis in Charlottesville, and now you're defending pedophilia and sexual assault just to hold the party line. I kind of wanted to pick your brain on that, because this one, David, I got to tell you, this one's new for me.
So what we're dealing with here is a phenomenon that's not unique to evangelicals, but it's something that religion does. Religion places itself above everything in your life, okay? Religion places itself above everything. There is so much horrible sin and debauchery in the Bible that they don't really even notice that when it comes to real life. So we've got evangelicals, and their number one concern is to support evangelicals. They don't care about the rest. That's their number one concern. Catholics support Catholics. Jews support Jews. This is in-group mentality, and this is what we're fighting.
I had made a short YouTube video of this on the Right to Reason channel, and these were my closing comments about what Silverman said. So that's it. Look, I don't know what he did, really. If you're concerned about context or any further details with that, that's episode 33. I'll put the link in the show notes, or you can find it at the website, therighttoreason.com. If by some chance you catch this video a little bit later and the episode isn't available, it's probably because I chose to remove it from the archive. I have not done that yet, but I might do that in the near future. Thank you to Callie Wright. You can find her at thegatheistmanifesto.com, of course. Look, friends, we've been going through some tough stuff, and a lot of our leaders have let us down lately. And I think it's important that we remember that we're skeptics. We don't follow leaders. Famous playwright and activist George Bernard Shaw said, "Progress is impossible without change, and those that cannot change their minds cannot change anything." He was right. And he was also someone that later went on to support Hitler, so fuck him. You get my point? It doesn't matter that he said it. It matters what he said. Humanism is not growing because of our leadership. It's growing because of us. The skeptic community is not the victim here. The victims are the victims. We're going through some changes right now, and we'll be better for it when it's over. So, stay the course. Members have left at the Valley. That's some pretty heavy stuff, guys. I'd love to get your opinion on three things. One, this happened a couple of years ago, exactly 3 years ago, or at least the alleged victim here is claiming that this happened in 2015, and he said that he's gone through a lot of personal changes in the last 3 years. In addition, he says we always believe the victim, and then he says to do otherwise is in-group mentality, and that's not the kind of thing that we want in the atheist movement. That's three pretty big matzo balls right there.
Yeah, no, and I think he's correct in saying that, and I think in his behavior he's stepped away himself. He hasn't really been putting up much of a fight, so I think he's not just talking the talk. I think he's walking the walk. When he says,
he said he didn't do it though.
Well, of course, yeah. If he can't, maybe in his mind he doesn't think he has.
Well,
but nonetheless, he said, if you're an asshole, walk away, go work on yourself, and then come back maybe later. And maybe that's what he needs to do right now. Maybe he's realizing, okay, I've been the asshole. I didn't think I was, but obviously people think I've been the asshole. I need to step away, work on myself, and then a few years down the road, maybe come back, David. It's not going to be an easy return for sure, but nonetheless, we can give him the benefit of it out there. He also made a very good point about making fun of these women, these victims, which is one of the things, because he was talking about in mentality about, we're supporting Jews, support Jews, Catholics support Catholics, and atheists will have a tendency to support atheists too. And this is why we need to understand and listen to those victims. And, he was making that comment there. If you're being an ass and you're accusing these women that are bringing these accusations, try to defend Silverman and Krauss, that you might be making a huge mistake.
I found it interesting, though, that in his conversation, he was talking about how people that have, used to do, horrible things and, are no longer an asshole.
Yeah.
You should just, totally let them off for their past behavior.
And to clarify, I don't want to take that conversation out of context. We were referencing the Mythicist Milwaukee convention, and he was talking about all of the, and this is their term for who they are, the shitlords, that that had just recently made fun of was it a French politician that had been sexually assaulted?
British.
Okay.
Yeah,
so that he wasn't, the comment about the assholes wasn't necessarily referencing those that have performed sexual assault. It was referencing those that had made fun of sexual assault.
Yeah, making fun of the victims.
That makes way more sense.
Making fun of the victims, yeah.
Yeah, it does. I'm sorry, go ahead, Robert.
Well, I was just going to add to Kevin's comment where you were saying he is backing away from publicity right now. I recently, when I say recently, this morning I spoke to him, and his comment to me was silence is mandatory right now, and that could be taken multiple ways. If as someone that is innocent, silence is the only PR route that I can go right now, because if I say anything, it's going to be twisted. Or as someone that is guilty, silence is just the best play for me so that these accusations go away and I get back into the whisper networks and nobody's going to hold me accountable. So it's difficult because you could take that either way.
And it could also be in the hands of lawyers at this point too, right? At that point, the lawyer will tell you, just shut up, don't say a damn thing right now.
Yeah, and he's got a double whammy. He's got the assault, and then he's got some accusations of not money mishandling
of
funds,
money,
funds at the same time. So he's got two, really heavy accusations hanging over his head. I want to get into a little bit. This may be too heavy, a little bit, but it's interesting that people who take the moral high ground, like David did in explaining about assholes and talking about the victims and so forth, he took the right moral high ground. But many times people who do that compartmentalize what they do and their behavior, because in one sense they're giving the party line, they're saying what everybody expects, and then suddenly when they find that they can dominate a woman, their mind goes to a completely other space. It's, she's coming on to me, she gave me signals, I may have misread them, and men like that often feel justified in what they're doing, and it wasn't their fault. They didn't initiate it, but they sort of fell into the trap that this particular woman laid for them. And you get into this whole dynamic of people who can say with all the confidence in the world, these people are assholes, they ought to step away, and yet when it comes to their own behavior, rationalization and justification take over, and it's very difficult to explain to them or get them to understand where they failed in their moral stance.
I think you bring in an excellent point, Nancy, and I think it's exactly what happened with Silverman too. I don't think that he won there willingly trying to assault this woman, and I think the proof in the pudding is she used the safe word, and he stopped.
That's I was just thinking.
So in his mind, he was actually doing something that he's into BDSM and all that stuff. So he was just playing by the rules, and she said the safe word, and he stopped.
But if they hadn't if they hadn't discussed the situation beforehand, even if you're into BDSM, because I am part of a kink community, and if you haven't,
that will explain your outfit.
If you haven't discussed a situation beforehand, you can't just, this person's part of a kink community, so they obviously like it rough, so they like this situation, so I'm just gonna jump in.
Yeah, we're speculating
that.
Here
that isn't okay in no way, no matter what part. Like if you're into BDSM, people can't just assume that, because you're into this, then I can just take advantage of you because you won't mind because you like it.
No, I agree.
Because she had to say that word and he didn't stop before, and she was trying to get him to stop, then they obviously didn't talk about this scenario beforehand.
Can I take it a different direction? And this is it's a tough direction to go here because it's not one that I don't think any of us feel real comfortable discussing. But if we leave it out, we're leaving out a major chunk of what everybody's thinking, and we're not talking about it. So at the same time, while we don't want to call the victim a liar just because they're coming out, because it's highly, highly unlikely. I don't think people realize this, but if you read up on it, highly unlikely for someone to accuse someone else of sexual assault and face all the blowback that they get from that. just to try to ruin someone's career. Now, that's not to say that women are more virtuous or something like that. I'm not going down that route at all. I'm just saying
the social benefits aren't there.
Right, exactly. But that being said, okay, with that addendum to my next comment here, he said, you always believe the victim. Yeah. And let's say, hypothetically, let's say he is innocent. Do you think he's regretting that statement now? And whenever we, as people that are secular humanists that want to support the Me Too movement, whenever we make a broad statement like that, you always believe the victim, are we not being unskeptical? Or is it the other way around, where it's very unskeptical to just believe that, David wouldn't do this, Lawrence wouldn't do that. So, I mean, I think that's a facet here that we have to consider.
No, I think you're quite correct. And let's be quite honest here. Everything about this is a gray zone. Nothing about this is black or white. David could have been absolutely genuine in his belief, and the victim is probably very genuine in her accusations as well. And somewhere in between lies what actually happened. It's a question of perception at that point. And when it comes to sexual contact between people, like I said, there is no black or white. It's all gray. I mean, I could come here and hug Christina, and for me it's just a hug, but for her it's a sexual assault. Oh, it's probably going to be the other way around because she's really aggressive with me usually. The BDSM of her, right? So I guess we just gotta wait it out and see how it plays out. But it's like I said, we live in a world where our justice system tries to go right and wrong, but we know full well in this community there is nothing like that.
I also think that it very much depends on the situation, because for me, if there's multiple people who are making accusations over a longer period of time. Mm-hmm. 100% in that scenario, I'm going to believe the victims. Because if there's like a pattern and these people obviously haven't gotten together to collude, then I would be like with the Roy Moore situation or the Weinstein situation, like those people, I believe the victims in this. And if there's a scenario where there's one person that's accusing someone, in that scenario, believe the victim, because they need that support. Of course. Yeah. But and I will, with the person being accused, I'm not depending on like if it's like, oh, this person raped me versus like, yeah, this person like grabbed my crotch. I will shun them to a varying degree until it can be worked out. Yeah. What actually happened. Like, because I don't think we should assume someone is guilty to a point of like criminal law, like the law, but I don't think that they shouldn't have social repercussions.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fair. There's also another point that we haven't brought up in all this is the concept of time as well, right? What is unacceptable today, and although it was still morally probably reprehensible 30 years ago, was probably more accepted back then as well. It's hard to judge by the standards of today what somebody has done in the far past, for example, right? I mean, we wouldn't take, for example, what the founding fathers of the United States in slavery did is not morally acceptable today, but these were people of their time as well.
I think for that scenario, for like that situation, people's attitudes and their responses to an accusation is really shows their understanding of something that they might have done wrong, let's say 30 years ago. Because like 30 years ago, say you're a CEO and grabbing your a secretary's ass might have been totally what people just did. Yeah. And say nowadays they can look back on that and be like, oh my God, I was horrible. And say they then they can reach out to this woman and be like, I'm so sorry for doing that. Yeah. That person, I would 100% be like, okay, you obviously assessed your past behavior, see the fault in it, and are changing.
Well, my advantage in being able to go back 5,000 years and be able to relate some of my personal experiences as well as those of many women in many countries around me give me a different perspective.
Nancy's actually talking into a microphone with a crank on the side of it.
Exactly.
Nancy still has dinosaur insurance
actually,
in her car.
I'm the crank on this side. But thanks. I think that behavior in general has always been wrong in terms of how it's been perceived. What has held women back from complaining about it and from telling women, I'm just going to have to ignore it even though I'm seething inside, is number one, this may be what I have to do to keep my job, and I'm going to see if I can quit. If I can't quit because I've got 4 kids, and a sick husband, then I'm going to have to put up with it, but I'm going to have to figure out how to deal with it. That women, also the problem with reporting it for women has been dismal. There have been very few instances where women have been able to report a supervisor and go through the process and come out ahead, either by the guy saying, yes, that's true, I did it, and receiving some punishment or whatever. So the time has made women susceptible to all of this, because men have realized that they've been vulnerable. Even women who have been raped, who go to trial, they find some way of saying, but your dress was too short, so it was your fault. So I think maybe the Me Too movement at this point is finally an eruption of all the suppression that went on before. And it's going to take some while to straighten out behaviors on both sides, because the volcano has been sleeping for a long time.
Exactly.
And men have not gotten the message, because a lot of women haven't known how, and other men haven't known how to talk with each other about what the hell the message is.
And of course,
but it's a turning point.
As atheists, we can even go back into antiquity and even further than that, where the testimony of a woman was only worth half of that of a man. And to this day, we still have that in some religion.
Been there, done that in antiquity.
Yeah. So I think another large issue with the Me Too movement coming out, and this isn't an issue with the Me Too movement, but like that women have faced, is with religion. It is a massive thing in our world. Religions usually try to protect the men.
Yeah.
So like, I know in my family growing up, there was rampant abuse of every kind, and when different kinds of abuse would come to light, the older, like my mom and older siblings, would try to protect the abusers, and like, that didn't actually happen. Yeah. Like I didn't see it happen, so it didn't actually happen, and like that's
our instinct, right? We as a society, as a tribal community, we try to, whenever we are defending the accused, we kind of, I think, subconsciously feel like we are helping the status quo. We don't want things to get chaotic, and I don't think that's a healthy perspective. Like, I understand where it comes from. Sure, I can see it. I can see why we do it, but it's really not fair to the victims. But on the same end, it's kind of difficult for me personally. I'll share something real personal with you guys. I have actually been accused of sexual harassment twice. Two times.
I withdrew the accusation, Robert. I withdrew that.
Oh, okay. All right, once. But anyway, no, really, I'm not even kidding. And I know when I say that, the initial response, I'm sure you guys or the listeners are like, whoa, we got a fucking asshole here. And granted, I am an asshole, but I haven't sexually harassed these people, So the comment that I often hear is, well, if you hear it once, then it's probably not true. If you hear it multiple times, you got to start believing it. And I tend to agree with that. However, I have personal experience with this where it was once in high school. There was this girl that, for whatever reason, she hated my guts, right? And she went to the administration and said, Robert, and I quote, asked me, how much milk is in your titties? Was the actual claim. And you're not supposed to laugh at that. But so I never said that shit to her. And my defense is not that as a teenage high school boy, I didn't make jokes about titties. That's not my defense at all. My defense is that that's just not a funny joke. Like, I could have come up with better stuff than that, and I wouldn't have said it to her anyway. But regardless, that's something that just didn't happen. But I actually got in a lot of trouble for that. And then it was years later, I'm in my 20s. I'm a supervisor in a manufacturing facility, and I actually was accused of sexually harassing a dude. Yeah. So this guy said that I had made fun of him for being gay. And, that's just not true. I didn't even know the guy was gay, but he just wanted my job. So, I mean, in both of these situations, I've been accused more than once of a particular thing. Does that make me guilty? Because if we're going to say that these other gentlemen are guilty, then we should say that I'm guilty. However, I happen to have the facts that, like, I know, no one else could know, right? At least my accusers know. But I know that that's just not true. So at the same, like, I'm not trying to defend people like Krause or Silverman or Shermer or what have you. But I can say I have personal experience where people will lie to fuck you up. What do you do with that?
Exactly. I don't think you are. I don't think you were wrongfully accused. I wouldn't put you in a category at all of sexual harassment. You were a victim of people who manipulated the situation to their own advantage and used the sex card to get what they but to get what they thought they wanted. So in either case, I wouldn't put you in that category at all.
At the end of the investigation with Silverman, for example, we might find out that might be what happened to him too. It's quite possible. It's not a common thing, though. I'll say that. It's usually not common. It's much more likely if we're just going to play probabilities, especially when you have a certain amount of accusers like with Krause. There's a probability here you got to play, but it's not impossible nonetheless. But this is also why we really need to restrain ourselves and dismissing the person right away, no matter who they are, no matter what the accusation is too.
And I would also look at the situation you were talking about with yourself, like those saying like, okay, you can look at those two situations, and then I would then assume you are like a sexual harasser.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a pattern. You have to be honest.
Very different. And you can see how those people got something out of those accusations. Whereas most people who are accusing people in places of power of sexual harassment or assault, they won't get anything out of...
That is a good point. That's a good point.
Anything out of this accusation other than having themselves ridiculed and harassed and online and like with death threats and rape threats. And so that is another thing you have to take into account when you're assessing accusations. Okay, why would this person do this? Like, why would this person make this accusation? They won't, like, because if they're, say you have like a custody dispute for a child and the woman has never, like, there's no past history of like abuse in couple and like there's no restraining orders, there's no like complaints, and then she just randomly, oh, well, he raped me. Like, in that, okay, like, is there evidence? Like, are you just trying to do this to get your child?
It's suspicious all of a sudden.
Exactly. So you do have to look at the larger context of someone's life and how, like, So, like, I definitely think with, like, the
analogies don't really line up, I guess is what you're saying.
No, they don't.
Okay, that's fair.
But you do have to look at the overall... the situation.
The end goal.
Yeah.
I will testify for sure that Robert has a very gentle touch. He's been nothing but nice to me.
Kevin's got a good muffler on him. I'll give him that. Got a good one. Hey, I wanted to ask you guys so many questions about the show, and I didn't realize that this conversation was going to be nearly an hour long, but I mean, not the conversation, but just the topic itself. But I guess there are a lot of caveats to it, and I really appreciate all of your opinions on it. Is there, boy, I gotta have you back. I gotta have you back so that we can have more time to actually discuss the show. Let me just say this much, okay? For the listener's sake, if you guys aren't familiar with Left at the Valley, this is not an accurate representation of their show. Actually, what they do is very pro-atheism. They don't try to do the whole divide thing. Not that that's what we were doing today, but you know what I mean. Like, you guys really promote a positive message, that's a pro-humanist, pro-secularism, pro-atheist message. And, I really appreciate it. It's a very funny show, and I'd love it if you guys could tell the listeners where they can find it and, how they can learn more about you.
Yeah, well, our show is basically mainly, it's an interview-based show. We usually have interviews based on, we try to promote authors. It's very pro-feminist as well, I'd say.
Oh,
you know, and it always does have an atheist flavor to it. We're probably not as funny as you're making us out to be, Robert.
I love it. I laugh my ass off. Because you got a good back and forth between all the different personalities on it, except for Scott. I'm just kidding. I love Scott.
So.
No, well, the thing is that usually a lot of these podcasts have a tendency to have like people in different locations that do everything over the internet. We're all in the same room together, so there's a chemistry that builds between us, and eventually we have some quirks that, you know, whenever I drop the ball, you can be sure that Nancy right away will pick it up and do probably a better job. Actually, I should probably just give her the show because it would probably do a better job anyway. And everybody's got their strengths and their weaknesses and their own point of view, and from different facets of life, we're all very different in that sense. And I think that this is what makes the show.
But actually, thanks for giving us all, including yourself, Robert, the opportunity to get in depth with a current topic that has so many different ramifications to it and so many different points of view. We actually don't have a chance to get in that depth, you know, in any topic, and it was really worthwhile and enjoyable, and I'm glad you invited us on the show and led the topic. Thanks.
Yeah. I feel kind of like a lot of this discussion focused on the accused and their potential innocence, and I feel like we didn't spend as much time on the victims, and hopefully in post that's not what the listener gets from this discussion. But I appreciate you saying that, Nancy, because I think that this is something that you can't solve this in a tweet. And that's kind of what everybody's trying to do right now, is they're trying to say, oh, you know, here's my Facebook post on it. And if you try to comment about it, I think my first comment, at least before he was fired, it was when American Atheist initially said that he was suspended. And I had posted something on Facebook that said, David Silverman has been suspended from American Atheist. Hopefully this is a mistake. And I got to tell you, immediately the response that I got was, maybe you shouldn't say that, Robert. Maybe what you should say is, we feel bad for the victims of sexual assault. And I'm immediately thinking, this was before any sexual assault came out. Now, all you know, in all fairness, that is what ended up happening. So this guy, you know, had a crystal ball on him, right? But still, that's what it often is. But my feeling on it was like, we don't even know what it is yet, and we're already jumping to conclusions, and you're already telling me what I should be saying about it, which is, you know, that kind of bothers you as it is. Like whenever somebody tries to control what you say, why don't you say this instead of that? Like, why don't I fucking say what I want? But at the same time, this is a conversation that has to be had over a long period of time. You can't just do this quickly. So I appreciate everybody kind of chiming in. And if there's anything else anyone wanted to add to the topic that, you know, if they felt like I cut you off or something like that, feel free.
I just want. Sorry, go ahead, dear.
Cut me off.
You know what? Her off.
Get over it.
Now I'm going to be rough with you next time, Kev.
That cracked the whips out of it.
Yeah. I just wanted to go back to what I was saying a little earlier. With me, like as a child in my household, with abuse being like minimized and the abusers being protected, I think that another harmful thing that does is for my brothers seeing that as acceptable and okay, that then when they grow up and go through life and they continue to get those messages that, oh, this is acceptable behavior, it's something that it starts when you're kids and you grow up in this environment that for both girls and boys we're getting these messages that this is just how it is, you can't do anything, that our whole society has to be reprogrammed, and it's not going to be a switch that flips. It is going to be hard and take a while, and we're all going to have to get down in the mud and work with each other and give everyone the benefit of the doubt that they are trying, but if their actions then do not support that benefit of the doubt, you just gotta be, okay, dude, you need more help.
I think in general, and this is really general, I think these kinds of men, which is a bad thing to say when you start. I think there are two categories. You've got the genuine abusers.
Why are you looking at me when you say that?
Because
we're all pointed towards
you. One of these days you're going to sit somewhere else in the room.
So there's genuine abusers and looks you straight in the eyes. It's like, oh my God.
Okay, but here I'm coming up to the second one, so you won't feel so bad. And then you've got the clueless.
Oh God. Let's just beat up on Kev Day. Now I'm feeling bad.
The situation has to take into account what kind of guy was it that indulged in this kind of behavior. Is it someone who generally gets off on
taking power from another person,
of the vulnerable, whether it's a puppy or a woman or a child, or is it someone who's bought into the culture or bought into, as you said before, Christina, this is the way they were raised and so forth. And those people they can evolve, they can be redeemed, they can suddenly get insight into their behavior. But it is something, as Robert says, it's going to take us a while to sort all of this out and to come out of it where everybody maybe has a better understanding of which situation has occurred and how to resolve it.
Sorry, did you want to say something?
I was actually going to say something. The way I kind of look at it, as we were talking about everything not being black and white and being in a gray zone, is you really have to, if you're making judgments on this, not diminish any of anyone's point of view, they let that, but then step back and take every fact and just kind of look at the whole thing.
As long as the point of view is sustained by fact, right?
Exactly, and not just immediately be like, you're right, you're wrong, and that's how it's going to go. That's what's going to steer the case, or that's what is going to direct it. You kind of have to take a step back, or at least the way I like to look at it, and not immediately all right, this is what I'm feeling, but let's look at all of the facts and see where we're going to go, where that will take us.
Well, to segue to exactly what you were saying, Kirsten, Robert, as Canadians, we were always taught as Canadians, when the U.S. gets a cold, Canada gets pneumonia or something like that, right? And there's a lot of influence that comes from the South that comes up here. And we have seen with dread a lot of polarization in U.S. politics. And it's coming across the border now here as well into our Canadian politics. And now we're seeing polarization, not just in the political circle, but also in everyday aspect of our life. It's no longer, zones of grays. It's black and white. It's he's guilty or he's not. And, and that's a bit of a problem. And I'm really, really concerned as a Canadian to see that happen in our everyday discourse. That people are right away saying, you know what, Silverman did this, bang, throw him to the wolves, give him the chair, throw the book at him, whatever. Or at the same time, I don't know. Am I expressing this correctly, guys? Is there any other way to say that?
Just like Kirsten said, there's no right or wrong.
You're asking the women's permission. You're like I want to defend him a little. I mean,
but he's a little bit outnumbered.
I definitely think in these situations you should support the victim.
Oh, absolutely.
In that process of finding out the facts.
Yeah.
I don't think you should. Okay, well, I'm not going to support either side.
Oh, that's not.
Think about this though. If we support the victim, or let's say I'm going to wait on the facts. Okay, I support the victim quietly because I'm waiting on the facts and reality. But then doesn't that get right back into the whisper network where these things continue? And I don't know. Well, I don't know where to draw this line.
I think you should be finding those facts right away and making it a priority.
Also, what if there are no facts? What if there is no evidence, but 6 different people, Kevin, I'm going to use you again. I'm sorry, buddy. 6 different women, and let's say 1 midget guy. Let's make it fun. We'll make it fun. We'll make it interesting. And a horse. All accuse Kevin of sexual assault.
First of all, I'm insulted you only took 6.
But still... But, I mean, at that point, I can tell you I would feel like Kevin's a real creeper at that moment. But that doesn't mean that any evidence has been presented. But I do know at the same time it's highly unlikely that people make these accusations unless it's true. But then I have my personal experiences where I've had people that made accusations that weren't true. This is tough stuff. I think everybody's having a hard time. And what we tend to do within especially our community is as soon as we say, well, we agree on 99% of everything, but here's 1%, and it has to do with real people really getting hurt, and it matters to us, and we care about victims of sexual assault. Since we don't line up on this one, you're the bad guy, I'm the good guy. And the person on the other side of the coin says, well, you're the bad guy, I'm the good guy. And this is a very divisive thing as well. It's not just a problem to victims or to people that have been falsely accused, but it's a problem for the entire community because it's ripping us apart.
Yeah, and it's also what I'm afraid the social justice warriors are kind of doing. But that's a whole different show altogether. Now, the horse that's accusing me, is that Mr. Ed? Because his testimony could be really valuable at that point.
The one horse that can talk and you rape it. You idiot.
That's
you dumbass. Anyway, thank you guys so much for coming on here today.
Yeah. Oh, it was so much. I was going to say it was so much fun, but it is. I mean, it was a serious subject. We really covered it in a lot of ways.
I thought it'd be a lot of jokes, but I mean, this topic, it's just not funny.
It doesn't
really
really
isn't.
It's not really cohesive to jokes.
Yeah, like I mean, we got a couple in there, and I thought you guys did it very tastefully, but I can't reiterate enough to the listener. I've got 6 podcasts on my phone that I listen to regularly. And I listen to a lot of podcasts, but there's only 6 that I'm actually subscribed to, and the one at the top of the list is Left of the Valley. So I really encourage you guys to check it out. It's a very, very well done show. They start off with funny joke intros. You're talking over me, God damn it.
Yeah, always.
She does that.
I'm trying to kiss your ass, and you won't let me.
Went from number 1 to number 12. It's all
Thanks,
your fault.
Christina. And I had a whole bunch of vegetarian jokes ready to go as well for Robert.
Give us one.
Let's see. What do you call a fascist vegan?
A vegan?
No, lactose intolerant.
Sorry, I should have laughed at that, but all I could go was, all right, do 2 more. 3. The third one's gonna be funny.
Let's see. What's the best way to keep milk fresh?
I don't know.
Leave it in the cow.
Oh, well, that's actually true.
Well,
no.
Unless it gets mastitis, and then it's diseased.
What do you call a vegetarian with diarrhea?
I don't know.
A salad shooter. Now, for your audience that might not know, when Robert came on our show, right away he started doing some vegetarian jokes because he was just pretending to be on a vegetarian show for some god knows one reason.
I don't know why I did that, actually. I was
funny.
Very high.
Hey, we deserve a medal. We actually managed to sustain a serious conversation for an hour.
For an hour.
For an entire hour. We need a medal.
I do also want to apologize for speaking over you. It's an issue that I'm working on.
No, it's great. It's great. That's the other thing I love about the show is you guys are very natural, so that happens all the time. And you don't get that on a lot of podcasts. Everything seems like everybody's reading a goddamn script. And,
we don't do scripts.
And with you guys, you just kind of bullshit, but you have a lot of jokes and you deal with some real content throughout. So
we are thinking of doing like funny skits.
Yeah, we're
that
thinking
are
about
scripted.
That. We're thinking about that.
Like audio SNL kind of radio stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but we can't guarantee they're gonna stay scripted.
Yeah, that's true.
Very true.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't go there. I'm such a downer. I'm like, don't do it. Just.
No, I'm on your side.
Nancy and I say don't go that route. All right, try. Okay, I'll tell you what. I'll try it. Try it out, and then shit out. Hold on, let me start over. Try it out, and then send out like. Yeah, well, not me, but I mean, send out a Twitter thing or a Facebook thing, and get everybody's opinion on it, and see if you want to keep going. That's what.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, you can't succeed if you don't try.
Exactly. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Who came up with the idea to do skits?
No, it's just a long time ago when we first started the show. I was doing a 2-minute skit with a bunch of drunken friends, and we were calling it The Adventures of Father Vern. It was just a priest joke that we would put in a scenario. So this is
Kevin's idea.
And
everybody backed it because he's the boss. I see what's going on here.
I also just genuinely love skits.
No, we just thought, it'd be fun to bring a bit more humor to the show. Humor's always fun.
I'll say me and the rest of my listeners will be paying attention and subscribing to your podcast and seeing how these skits turn out. And we're gonna let you know what we think either way. So hopefully it's awesome.
Yeah, so you can find it at lefthatvalley.com. You can find us on Twitter, on Facebook at LATV Podcast. You can send us an email, leftatvalley@outlook.com, and you can send your complaints to Nancy on the 3rd floor.
Absolutely.
Is there a transition there that I missed?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
To David Blair at DaveFreeSong.com/free music and Jason Camo at ALostStateOfMind.com. You can find this show's content at TheRightToReason.com. Coming up in 2 weeks is the debate. It's finally coming. That's what she said. Amir Aziz and Eric Lounsbury are going to clash mics. Muslim versus Christian. And don't worry, I have a few follow-up questions for them of my own. You knew that I would. That is going to be recorded by video, so you finally get to see how we get down on this podcast. I would recommend that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss that very important debate three-way.
Hey, boys, I want you both. I hope that you think that's cool. I know most guys won't freak together. But she forgot about the golden rule. It's okay when it's in a three-way.
Before then, next week is going to be absolutely fascinating. Bernard Lamberel is the author of a new, mind-blowing book, The Covenant, on the origin of the Abrahamic faith by means of deification. Sounds complicated, but he's going to break it on down for us. And what he reveals in this book is awesome. It's groundbreaking. It's like he cracked the freaking code of all the Abrahamic religions. This guy's a freaking genius. Everything you need to know about Scripture, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam is going to be different in no more than 1 week from today. Between now and then, remember that you have the right to reason. Before I go though, could you guys all as one say well, not all as one, but like each of you say your names and then like all of you say, and this is Left at the Valley and you have the right to reason. Could you do something like that? And it's okay if you fuck it up.
Okay.
Well, that's good because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Do we say our names and then Kevin says the last part?
That's probably going to work better.
Because if we all try to say it at the same time, it's going to be like, and this.
Can we try both? Because I think you guys could do it.
Let's give it a shot. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hi, this is Kevin.
Penis.
This is Kirsten.
And Christina.
And this from the Left of the Valley, and you have the right to reason.
You guys didn't hear me say penis when you did it?
Yes, we heard you say penis.
You.
Oh, what? I ruined it. Can we do it again? I'm sorry. I thought everyone would laugh, but obviously I have no sense of humor.
Oh, we had to finish.
I always assume penis gets a joke or a laugh. But anyway, all right. Sorry.
You got to like slowly go penis.
I like that game where you start singing quietly and you get louder and louder.
Penis game.
So you saying that is actually what I'm going to use as the intro.
You recording this all along, right? Perfect.
Yeah. But I really won't use all the bullshit though. Don't worry.
So you want us to do it again?
Yeah. Can you try it all together one time?
Okay.
What are we doing all together?
Like you all say your names and then all of you say.
This is Left at the Valley.
Yeah.
And you have a right to reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hello, this is Kevin.
This is Nancy.
This is Kirsten.
And Christina.
And from the...
We were waiting for Kevin to lead us off, and he didn't.
Good job,
okay,
Kevin.
I am using this audio. This is hilarious. All right. So it's.
Can we just like try to do the last bit because you got us all saying our names?
Okay. So all you have to do is say, "This is Left at the Valley, and you have the right to reason." That's all you have to do.
Okay.
I was thinking of saying the Left of the Valley before we do the introduction, so we don't have that in the way. So when we do the introduction, then you can say, "And you have the right to reason."
Oh, I like that.
So if I say so, for example, "Hi, this is the crew from the Left of the Valley. My name is Kevin."
I'm Nancy.
This is Kirsten.
And Christina.
And
you have the right to reason.
Oh my God, that was perfect.
We're so professional.